Sabadi. Hello, everyone. How are you? You're Estet Kinvanok. That's good evening in Hungarian. And Sabadi. Welcome to Dennis, Saliba, Occult, and Fortean. And in today's stream, we're going to be looking at more of a mainstream news article, the ABC News, and we'll be looking at what it means to from an occult and Fortean sense, of what's the meaning behind the AI-generated Studio Ghibli phenomenon or the trend is about. So people might be pro-AI, people might be anti-AI, people might be in the middle. We're not arguing for either side per se, we're just looking at the meaning behind these events and what it means for us going forward, because ultimately art is a reflection of the human consciousness. Art is also the gateway into human culture. And it is art which is also the bridge between ritual, culture, and human consciousness. And some even argue that we borrow from the ether or this higher plane of existence and bring out through ritual the creativity, the transmuted product of creativity, by transmuting that energy into creative thought, to creative energy, to creative process, ultimately into creative work. And that in and of itself is its own alchemy, ritual, term it whichever way you want to term it. And that's ultimately what we're going to unpack today. So this is from the ABC News, published on the 3rd of April 2025 by Sohani Gunetilake. That's a very difficult name. Let's see what her bio is about first. Sohani Gunetilake. She's a journalist for the national news, digital, and social teams. She was previously a multimedia producer at youth media company, Shameless Media. Very short bio, but sounds like they're quite accomplished. So the AI Studio Ghibli trend, why it's so controversial. Legendary animator and founder of Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki, has captivated audiences around the world with his whimsical storytelling that explores the human experience and celebrates the natural world. I would also argue that he celebrates the magical world as well in a lot of his films. You see a lot of elements of like dreaming, for example. If you ever watch the movie The Wind That Rises, the dreaming of the creation of what would become the Mitsubishi Zero in one of his films. That film in and of itself carries a very deep anti-war message. Spirited Away in particular, this film here, that's Chihiro, the main character. Spirited Away is kind of like the bridge between the living and the afterlife, and how she gets trapped in the Spirited Away bathhouse, and then she has to complete the complete her contract ultimately with I think it was Yababa the witch, and there was Zuibaba the sister of the witch, which is the other witch, the good witch, and then the dark witch, the witch of darkness. But there are a lot of like magical themes within Miyazaki's film, so I would argue that it's not just the natural world, it's also our experience with the spiritual as well in quite a lot of his films. Not all of them, but his key films, yes. His films take several years to make and are famously hand-drawn, and I would also add hand-painted. If you watch the documentary on the behind the scenes of Studio Ghibli, very often the frames that you see in the backgrounds, frame by frame, they are pieces of artwork in and of itself. And very often you'll see the set designers painting by hand in the I highly recommend it. You should watch the behind the scenes of Studio Ghibli, with each intricate frame meticulously crafted. Now, OpenAI's new image generation tool allows users to render images in Mr. Miyazaki's signature style in a matter of seconds. The new tool has become immensely popular, with thousands of people sharing AI-generated memes and personal portraits in Studio Ghibli style on social media. Admittedly, I was guilty. I did this at least once. I was guilty. This trend has raised broader discussions about the ethical concerns of generated art, copyright issues, and the future livelihoods of animators and artists. Oh, very tired. So what is the Studio Ghibli AI trend? OpenAI unveiled its new image generation tool for ChatGPT last week, which allows users to transform images into different styles, including the Studio Ghibli style. Users simply upload an image onto the platform and request it to be rendered in the style of Studio Ghibli, and within seconds it will do so. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, took to X yesterday to announce that the new tool will be rolled out to all free users, enabling people to generate up to 3 images a day. Okay, so there's a cap. Well, at least the original intention of Sam Altman was to put a cap or a limit on it. Fair enough. The demand for AI-generated Ghibli style art caused a surge in users that OpenAI servers were reportedly melting, prompting Altman to implement rate limits temporarily. Many users have taken to X to share examples of AI-generated Studio Ghibli style internet memes. So it's been 24 hours since OpenAI shook the image world with 4.0 for oscillation or for oscillation image generation 4.0. Stop that. And here are 14 of the most mind-blowing examples so far, 100% AI generated. So we have, for example, we have the Turkish athlete from the Olympics. We have the girl who allegedly burns the house with a smug smile, the jealous girlfriend, and the just the distracted boyfriend, the jealous girlfriend, and the other girl. And I'm not too sure what meme that one is. OpenAI has largely encouraged Ghiblification, Mr. Altman even changing his profile picture on X into a Ghibli-style portrait. While many users have created personal portraits and memes with the tool, some have used it to generate unsettling, violent images, including depictions of the World Trade Center towers falling on the September 11th and the murder of George Floyd. I remember that particular meme. I'm guessing that's meant to be Trump. Yeah. Oh, ICE. Okay, that's ICE and the lady there. Deported alien felon convicted of fentanyl trafficking. Yeah, arrested by ICE. Okay. The White House's official X announcement also posted an AI-generated image of an ICE agent. That's her. And a tearful Virginia Basora Gonzalez for allegedly dealing fentanyl, sparking outrage for its insensitivity. And the famous quote from Miyazaki himself: "An insult to life itself, Miyazaki's disdain for AI. Mr. Miyazaki once called artificial intelligence in animation utterly disgusting and an insult to life itself. He even said he would never wish to incorporate this technology into his work at all," which is ultimately very ironic. So it's clear that he's obviously staunchly against this. There's no doubt about it. I'm not arguing for either side on this particular channel. I'm just stating that Hayao Miyazaki himself is staunchly against it. And then nearly a decade later, we see that this is awash with AI-generated images replicating his style, which is, I guess, the personification of irony, ultimately. Mr. Miyazaki has consistently stayed true to traditional hand-drawn techniques that give Studio Ghibli its distinctive expressive animations and attention to detail. The beloved Japanese animation production company is behind Oscar-winning movies Spirited Away and The Boy and the Heron. I might need to watch that probably tomorrow night or over the weekend. That's on my to-watch list. So why is the trend controversial? As the trend gained momentum, Mr. Miyazaki's past comments of AI animation resurfaced, sparking renewed discussions about the ethics of AI-generated art. Deborah Zapiro, an academic specializing in design, animation, and interaction, expressed concerns about OpenAI's exploitation of Mr. Miyazaki's work. It's not replicating or mimicking it, it's stealing it, Miss Zapiro told the ABC. And in fact, none of it actually retains the soul of any artwork, because what's happening with it is it's kind of like the world's biggest photocopier, whilst it's stealing. Well, ultimately, there is an element of truth in it, like we said before. Miyazaki himself is staunchly against this, there's no doubt about it. And there was no process of that I'm aware of. There's no process where Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, actually made an appeal for asking the permission for Miyazaki to get that work and to recognize or get permission to use that work. So, yeah. The fundamental OpenAI is exploiting Miyazaki's world, though we can never truly capture the essence of his work, as it fails to grasp the fundamental human element. Well, the human element is absent, not from Miyazaki's end. I meant from the people putting the inputs inside the machines, which generate the images through the machines. The human element is removed on the input end, apart from, Miyazaki's style. They do not understand art, they understand profit. And look, from a pro-capitalist perspective, there is ultimately the scalability involved. So you are able to generate far more output at a mere fraction, if any, of the cost. Basically, the cost itself would be the operation of the electricity behind the machines, right? Maybe arguably some IP if there were some lawsuits that were raised. But ultimately, the profit end of it is you would have way higher scalability with minimal input. And ultimately, that's the what capitalism, I guess, in and of itself seeks to accelerate. I'm not saying it's morally right or morally wrong. I'm just saying that capitalism, by its very nature, seeks to cut costs, cut input, and maximize output for profit. Almost anyone under 35 in the Western world has grown up with Ghibli films. I kind of disagree with this. I think some people even over 35 meet that as well. They meet that metric or that assertion. And that comfort and safeness and the beauty of Miyazaki's world is being exploited in this case. OpenAI is already facing copyright lawsuits over its flagship chatbot, has stated that it has implemented safeguards. We added a refusal, which triggers when the user attempts to generate an image in the style of a living artist. Okay, but why this? If that's the metric of your ethics, or the standard of your ethics, the framework of your ethics, then why make this trend? Why not make the works of a dead artist like Michelangelo. Why not make Michelangelo trend? Why Miyazaki's work? See, I kind of, and this is more intuition, this is not definite proof, this is intuition speaking. I get the feeling that the people behind OpenAI were purposefully trying to open the Jack in the Box. And they were doing this to prove a concept and an idea and to test its limits rather than consciously seek to supplant Ghibli's, Hayao Miyazaki's work per se. That they were actually trying to prove a point and prove a concept by pushing it to its limits. That's what my hunch tells me. They weren't doing it purposefully to profit from Ghibli. But we'll see what happens. I guess we'll see what happens. While Miyazaki 84 is a living artist, like I was saying before, OpenAI permits the replication of broader studio styles like the Ghibli style. OpenAI defended the trend, noting that users have shared truly delightful and inspired original fan creations. I'm going to stay neutral on that particular line of argumentation there. But the point still stands that Miyazaki is himself a living artist. So, like I was saying earlier, I believe that he was trying to, or the people behind OpenAI are trying to test the limits and boundaries of the system itself. The copyright system and artwork, the nature of the machine itself. Impact on Ghibli's brand integrity. John McGee, a professor of 3D visualization within the Faculty of Arts, Design and Architecture at UNSW, voiced concerns about the widespread, uncontrolled proliferation of Ghibli-style content on the internet. If it's not being curated in any way, it's not representative of the brand of the original artist who generated them, Professor McGee told the ABC. He argues this could harm the integrity of the brand. It could harm the integrity of any brand, any particular brand, not just Ghibli's, but anyone's, any living artist. He also pointed out the cultural and philosophical differences between traditional artists like Miyazaki and AI-generated content. Miyazaki's work often addresses themes like environmentalism and human impact. I would argue human spirituality too. In key films of his, while AI consumes significant power and contribute to environmental costs. That's a pretty fair point. Didn't even think about that. A lot of the content of the films that he makes have got like an environmental kind of component to them and about human waste. And then in contrast, you've got Sam Altman tweeted that it was melting the GPUs. Copyright controversy. Professor McGee raised an important question. Is OpenAI's model trained on Studio Ghibli's work without permission? Yeah, I believe it is, because there was a cease and desist letter that Miyazaki himself filed within, I think it was the first 72 hours of this trend. I should get a copy of the cease and desist letter. The algorithm has to be trained on something. I suspect there will be legal implications because it's taking someone else's artwork. And it hasn't asked permission to do that, Professor McGee said. One intellectual property lawyer who spoke to the ABC but did not want to be named in this piece said there had not yet been a specific case that had really tested these boundaries. My question then is, which party? From which party had these boundaries been tested? The machines? the people that have the copyright to the OpenAI, the people that have the copyright towards Studio Ghibli side. Which boundaries? Whose boundaries? They said, see, I think this trend is a disruptor, and it's a disruptor to prove a point. This is like the new what was that artwork? The urinal. There was a urinal. I forget his name. Marcel Duchamp. I think it was a French artist. He got a urinal from the 1930s. I think it was a 1937 artwork, and he placed it in an art museum and painted over it. It was like a part of the minimalist movement of back then. And what this is it's like the postmodern minimalist movement, or you could even say the postmodernist movement of art, full stop, going to its conclusion. And if you're going to go as far as the Francis, although that's more in the realm of international relations, but you could take elements out of it. Francis Fukuyama, 1994. Francis Fukuyama was an international relations theorist who believed that capitalism had won and that we were witnessing the end of history. Well, maybe if you were to look at it from the Francis Fukuyama metric, that this is the end of art history as we know it. Again, my thoughts, it's not raised in the article. I'm putting my thoughts in the article now. They said that in the US, OpenAI could argue that it taught its AI using other people's artworks, but that other influences were also included, thus transforming the original artwork as a so-called fair use argument. Australia's fair dealing laws are more restrictive and would usually allow content to be reused in news reports, academic or other research. And being an Australian myself, I'm not a copyright lawyer, but being an Australian myself, there is a 10% limit to that. So for example, if you had 10 chapters from a book, you couldn't copy the whole book. You would only be allowed to either use one particular chapter for research or the most significant findings within that research, and then credit the author, and then potentially give them a payout of some kind. The situation could also be complicated by any agreements OpenAI might have with libraries, or if a creator like Studio Ghibli posted content on a platform such as Facebook, which then had a license, well, Facebook is a publisher now, had a license to pass the material onto someone else, which Facebook becomes the third-party publisher, or that'll be under the domain of Meta then. In the age of the internet, they said it was very easy to lose control of your copyright license. While Mr. Miyazaki has yet to release a statement, he did release one actually. It's not hard to imagine what he would make of this new trend. Pretty interesting controversy, to say the least. Pretty interesting controversy, to say the least. There I am. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, but it does make me go back towards mythology. I know this stream is a bit longer than my other ones. But I want to quickly go to Mr. Frank Herbert, the American author of Dune. I believe this is the Dune author. Yes, it is. Dune. And he himself is kind of like a parallel to Miyazaki in the sense that he writes about things like ecology, but more on the transhumanist camp rather than our relationship with nature. But there is an overlap. It does include ecology in his writings, human evolution, consequences of genetic manipulation, and mystical and psychic possibilities of such. So should be noted. Somewhat of a tiny parallel, not saying that there's a total one. And then when we get to his quote, he does give us a bit of a warning here, which funnily enough comes from fiction rather than non-fiction. Once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. And I would also add that what we're seeing is the machine itself, through the mechanisms of IP law, intellectual property law, is seeking to contain art, or at least the expression of human art. And by doing so, you could make the argument, like Frank Herbert Dune, the author of Dune, that these machines are enslaving people. But the one thing that I would argue in defense of the human artist is that these machines cannot enslave the very creative energies of the human being. So do take that as you may. I believe that from an ethics perspective, that we shouldn't allow these machines to intimidate other humans from partaking in the creative energy process. Whether people choose to use the machines for example, storyboarding, conceptualizing their artwork, and then producing it through human input for the final product without the machines, that's up to them. But I guess the question then remains is, from the Francis Fukuyama, the guy who wrote about international relations back in like 1994, that rather than seeing the end of history, are we seeing the end of art history, thereby art itself, because of the AI machine? So please let me know what your thoughts are. I thought this would be a very interesting discussion, because the end of human creativity means that there are limitations, or at least concessions made to the nature of ritual and the creative process and the creative works that underpin culture and everything else from culture. So what are your thoughts? Do let me know. And just remember, Humanus Invictus, the human spirit is unconquered. I'll see you in future streams. Bye for now, and take care. Sabadi. Have a good day.